Hello, hello, Bethylers. I am back to answer more of your questions. Let's just dive in. All right, so Boofy777, hello, says Ansel Elgort plus a couple more things. I am really enjoying the podcast, which revisits some of the older points of TD from S5 to 7. Back before S5, when Beth was missing, tweets and other social media releases took place, which pictured Ansel Elgort, I'm sorry, I have a hard time saying his name, with a zombie and announcing he would be joining the cast in S5 and might have a thing with Beth. Yes, I do remember this, and I will put a picture up of it. A couple of these tweets were on official TWD accounts. Of course, AE was hugely popular at the time due to the success of the Fault in Our Stars film. And then crickets. However, the now defunct Facebook spoiler site did capture a photo of Beth, Emily Kinney in her cast and scrubs, a man pulling some sound equipment on a cart, and also another young male wearing scrubs about the same height and with the same posture as AE, apparently at the Grady filming site. There was also an individual matching his size and stature standing in the background of the hallway as one of the unnamed Grady wards at the time Beth was shot. It was also rumored during this time AE gave some misleading tweets regarding his location, indicating he might be somewhere filming and didn't want the general audience to be aware of it. Obviously, he has not shown up, to our knowledge, on the flagship show. In 2020, AE caught a lot of heat for an alleged sexual encounter with an underage girl. I have wondered if he was filming for the future and supposed to appear at some point, if these plans might have been scrapped due to these allegations, or if he has yet to appear with surviving members of the Grady Bunch at some point. Okay, I love the Grady Bunch. I always call them Gradians, which is a little bit awkward. I think I'm going to start calling them the Grady Bunch. Obviously, I don't know the answer to this for sure. I assumed back in the day when this happened that it was a misleading thing from the writers and that it was also a hint. By hint, I mean they were saying that there would be a romance for Beth, and people would freak out about that. She's supposed to be, even like Bethyl, or she's supposed to be with Daryl. What do you mean she's going to have a romance with someone else? But I was going, I don't know if I get that's what they're saying, but I feel like we have to kind of read between the lines, and maybe this is just a hint at a romance, kind of like the damn romance novel line. Like, they wouldn't be saying this if there wasn't a romance going to be involved. So I wasn't so worried about her actually having a romance with some random guy at Grady. I was more thinking that it was a hint about what was going to happen, that Daryl was going to find her, and there was going to be this big, beautiful romance, right? Obviously, neither of those things happened. We did not see Ansel Elgort in the show, and, we didn't really get the Beth and Daryl romance we wanted either because she got shot. So then I just kind of figured, okay, well, since then, I'll go back to them, everything that they said before Grady happened, which was that Daryl will find romance in the apocalypse, that, they were, you guys might not remember this, but this is back before streaming, okay? So this was on TV and everyone was watching it live every week, and they had these promo spots, like when it would go on to commercial or come back from commercial, where they would show us, in season 5, they would show us clips of Beth and Daryl together in season 4. Like, it would show just a 30-second clip from the golf club or from the Moonshine Shack. And they were really promoting it heavily. And so I kind of felt like this was just in line with that. Like, they were promoting it as, this is a romance we're going to be doing, and, Beth is going to have this romance, and that's what it was supposed to be. And that, maybe Ansel Elgort was never going to be on the show, and that's just what it was. And even after she got shot, I kind of just stood by that and said, well, it's an ongoing romance. It hasn't ended yet because we haven't gotten any closure yet on any of this and that sort of thing. But I have had a few people tell me over the years that they believe that Ansel Elgort is actually a thing and that he will actually be in it, and that was true. And the reason they were okay promoting that is because they knew that we weren't actually going to see him in season 5. So the idea would be then that, much like The Missing 17 Days and other stuff that we didn't see at Grady, he actually did film during this time, but we were never going to see his scenes, his arc, his part of the show until Beth returned. And I think that that's a very viable possibility. I think that really could be the case. I like to say that they don't lie to us about things, but they do sometimes, I don't know, what would you call it? It is misdirection, but it's also kind of not. It's like hinting at things by using extremely similar things. I know, I'm not explaining it very well. So what this makes me think of is back think it was after season 7, or maybe it was just after the mid-season finale of season 7. Carol and Ezekiel, but the actors, Melissa and Kari Payton, did this goofy little video where they pretended like they were having a baby together, like they were in a car and she was in labor and they were going to have a baby. Now, obviously on the show, they have not had a baby together, and Carol's probably too old to actually conceive at this point, but they did raise Henry together, and they did that before Henry came into the show. So it was them telling us that these two were going to raise a child together, even if what they were showing on the social media, which was her having the baby, never actually happened in the show. You see what I mean? So you could say that about the Ansel Elgort thing. They were saying Beth is going to have a romance. We did not see that in season 5, and I do not believe they were lying about that. So, you know, we can talk about Daryl finding romance in the apocalypse, and we can't say for sure that it will be Beth. You know, obviously I think it will be, but, you know, just Larry King and Gimple telling Larry King that does not prove that it will be Beth. It just proves that Daryl eventually will find love in the apocalypse. But they told us through this tweet that Beth would have a romance, and we did not see that in season 5, which means there's still a romance for her somewhere that we have not seen. Now, is it with Ansel Elgort? I have no idea. I mean, much like Daryl and Leah, maybe she'll have some relationships along the way, but they won't be, you know, her soulmate relationships. They might be somewhat toxic, you know, we don't know. But I actually think it would be really interesting to have this man be in the Grady arc, because what that would show is, number one, that there was a lot more going on at Grady that we did not see, right? That they were setting up things that they never actually got to in season 5, because it could be a couple of things, and this is just me going off on a tangent and conjecturing. Maybe while she was there in season 5, she actually did talk to, you know, whoever this character is, and we just didn't see it. So that's more that they cut out and didn't show us. Or it could be that she really didn't talk to him, but after she gets shot, after the missing 17 days, when she wakes up, then she'll end up having some interactions with him. Either way, they were planning this, and they knew about this, and there's stuff we have not seen that was filmed, period. So that should give you hope that at some point they're going to have to show us that stuff, right? What else was I going to say about this? Oh, in terms of whether they would scrap it, I think it would be jumping the gun to say that they've scrapped it yet, because we haven't seen it yet. You know, we would have to see the missing 17 days and Beth's arc in order to really make any kind of judgment about whether they would have scrapped it for the reasons you said. I really don't follow Ansel Elgort, so I didn't know about the 2020 thing. Could they scrap it for that? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But it would also depend on the situation, and I don't know. I have a hard time believing they would scrap it because you remember that back when a lot of that stuff was going on, Chris from The Talking Dead also was accused of something like that. Now, whichever side you fall down on, whether he did it for real or not, they did have him leave The Talking Dead for a few weeks so that some investigations could be done. But in the end, they supported him. He was not convicted of anything. It really does look like they were really trumped up allegations, unfortunately. So assuming that Ansel Elgort was not actually convicted of anything, I kind of don't think they would scrap it. I think they would just say, you know, we filmed this before. If he's not in prison, then we're going to use the stuff we filmed. And again, that's just me. That's my guess. Anything could be the case. But because we haven't actually seen the stuff that he allegedly might be in, and we don't even know for sure that he is, I just think it's a little bit early, like we're jumping the gun to say that they might have scrapped it. So we'll just have to wait and see, basically. We don't know. Anything that I say about this, obviously, is going to be conjecture. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people don't know about that, don't remember that, and it was forgotten pretty quickly because he didn't show up in season 5. So people just thought, oh, they were just lying. Oh, it was just a misdirection. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we actually do see him in her arc anywhere. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Now, let's go to the second part here. Also regarding some other asks that have come up, you probably already know this. Dr. Edwards, Eric Jensen, was recently diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which has spread to his liver. This might affect any planned return of his character to the TWD universe. Yeah, it might. I would say that, especially given what Nicotero said about the Grady Bunch, he said that he thought they were all dead. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was really, really suspicious. Someone asked if the people from Grady were still alive, and he kind of went, yeah, they're dead. Yeah, I think they're all dead. And it was just like, Yeah, way to be confident there. Anyway, so I think that there's a good chance that when we see Beth again, honestly, most of the Grady bunch could be dead because for whatever reason along the way, they just died. You know, like they were with her for a while and she lost people the same as Daryl has lost a lot of people that were minor characters. That doesn't mean that we won't see them again. I just think it could all be in flashback. And if that's the case, there's a good chance that Eric Jensen has already filmed whatever it was he was going to film for The Walking Dead. We just haven't seen it yet. So now on the flip side, again, because we don't know their plans, if he was meant to survive and still be there when, you know, Beth and Daryl come back together, then yes, him being sick like this definitely could affect plans for the character. So what I will say is that if that happens, and let's hope not, like I said, I hope he pulls through, but that is pretty scary that it's stage 4. There was a situation on Fear the Walking Dead where one of the main characters, John Dory, the actor, decided to leave the show. And it was really obvious to me in the episodes and the seasons that followed that the writers did not want him to leave the show, that they had other arcs planned for him. But of course, if the actor doesn't want to be there anymore, they're not going to force him to continue working on the show. That would not go over well. So they allowed him to leave and they basically killed off his character, but they brought in another man who was actually in the show. It was that character's father and he had the same name. So it was like John Dory Sr. and John Dory Jr. And they basically gave him all the arcs they were originally going to give, you know, that original character. He didn't stay on the show for very long. He was only on there for a little while, but it was so that they could wrap up his character arc. So if it turns out that, you know, Eric Jensen can't come back and was supposed to, I'm sure they would do something like that. They would do something to wrap up his character arc or just have to give his arcs to somebody else and you know, they would still do the best they could to make sure that the symbolism made sense for this new character. Because things have changed and we've seen them change the symbolism a little bit before. They did that actually in Diverged, which was probably created right after they realized Melissa wouldn't be in the first season of Daryl Dixon. Right after they figured that out, they created the episode Diverged, which showed Daryl and Carol going their separate ways for a little while and then coming back together. And just look at what's happened now. Daryl and Carol went their separate ways. We have the Daryl Dixon first season, and now they're coming back together for the second season. So that was created to foreshadow that, even though originally that was not how it was going to be. So I have every faith that the writers will figure it out, you know, but like I said, I think there's a really good chance that he's already filmed everything he needs to film anyway. So we just wish him well and hope that he's able to pull through. Guinea pigs called cavies in this serious cavie show world. I don't know what that is. I have a friend who actively does this, are connected to healing, friendship, motherhood, and fertility, and sacred songs. Sort of Bethish, right? Yes. And I have heard people say stuff like that before. There's been a lot of people who have tried to analyze, you know, what the guinea pig symbol means or stands for. And yeah, there's some very Bethish stuff involved in it. But I do like the very on the nose interpretation that it's a matter of maybe some experimentation going on at Grady, because I think that plays the best into the bite cure theory and also into the coming war with the CRM. But yes, all of those things are true and very interesting. Isabel. Wow, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure why fans are seeing any romance here at all. Frankly, I see her as more of a plot device to introduce Laurent to the story. A trope that always comes up in epidemic/zombie apocalypse type shows is the immune one, etc., and how this person will be the savior of all humanity. Z Nation, The Last of Us, etc. But they have to introduce the person and give them some sort of backstory so that everyone knows how special and vital this person is. If Isabel had been Laurent's mother, I would feel a romance would be much more likely, but since she is his aunt, she could be written off more easily, and it has already been released. The S3 is starting production, but no filming in France. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to read all of this. You rock. Thank you. You rock too. Yeah, I agree that there's not a romance there between Isabel and Daryl, and actually just recently I put up the ask that shows that he has that heart tattoo, and they took it out of the bath scene with him and Isabel, which to me is a very clear sign that there will not be romance there, and that there's not meant to be. Yeah, but it's interesting that you call her a plot device. You know, honestly, they've done that before. I'm going to struggle to find an example, but it seems like we've seen characters that have come in before where they've done a big backstory and people think, oh, because of this big backstory, this character is going to last a long time, and then they don't, and I'm not going to be able to think of an example now, but they definitely have, and it's because the backstory of her is really the backstory of Laurent. I've also had people sending me things that have leaked from the filming of season 2 of Daryl Dixon, in which they say that Laurent is with Daryl and Carol, and Isabel is not there. Now, that doesn't really mean anything. We don't know that means she was killed off. It really could just be a scene that somebody saw being filmed that she wasn't in. But it's also possible that she's killed off, or that she stays in one place and they leave her behind. We did have the situation in the first season where Daryl took Laurent on the river and left Isabel behind. And that was remedied pretty quickly. They all came back together within about an episode of that. But it also could have been a foreshadow of something bigger down the road. They do that quite often too. So yeah. I agree. Either way, I don't dislike Isabel, and I wouldn't mind if she was on the show long term, but it's not going to be a romantic thing. That much is obvious. So I agree. Thank you for all your questions and your thoughts, and for sharing them with us. And everyone, let us know what you think about the Ansel Elgort situation. And yeah, I'm going to call it there because we've been running for a while, and I will be back tomorrow with more. Have a good day.